sitting with medicine teaches you courage to go inwards, to understand that the darkness isn't bad. Your darkness is necessary. Your darkness, when you close your eyes, is everything bad in there? It's not. The medicine has shown me the importance of honoring the darkness, of honoring that when we go inwards, when I'm able to look deeper and deeper within myself, it's like a luminous darkness that I go inwards to get very clear on what are my longings, what are my callings, what are my involutions.
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Today's guest is Sandra Tru. Sandra is a transpersonal life coach where she helps her clients bring together psychology and spirituality to reach full human potential and increase enthusiasm, life, vitality, and purpose. During our conversation with Sandra, we delved into her journey of yoga, acting, and profound spiritual experience. Sandra shared her experience with plant medicine, the art of channeling, and the power of embracing the light and dark within. Get ready for an episode that's a blend of deep introspection, joy discovery, and the pursuit of soulful and authentic living. Enjoy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. As I mentioned outside of the recording, that you're the first female guest that I have. So it's an honor to have you. It's an honor to have you as a friend also. It's been a really fun time just sharing different experiences together. It's always some kind of a fun experience. Like we always find ways to enjoy the moment for sure. Yeah. And I would suspect so I have other types of friends, right? And I have different types of experiences with those friends. With you, I tend to have particular experiences that are like more fun, like more just doing fun things. I'm sure your life is not just about fun, right? Like maybe it's more about fun when you come out and being in public and talk, like interacting with people potentially. Forgot where I was going with that.
I will say though, if I may interrupt, that the goal of my life is for it to just be fun.
Okay. Yeah, I can sense that then.
More and more.
Exactly.
And it's an honor to have you as a friend.
Thank you.
It's beautiful to know that through our experiences of fun, much of what we do is to explore thought of consciousness and to explore the realms of our inner worlds in language. And so I find that to be so fun. And it's usually around community, and it's usually around experiences that support that inner exploration of self through your eyes, right? As I explore myself through you and asking you questions and the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so fun.
Yeah. So it's been always kind of some kind of memorable experience, either at like a community event or just a hangout or something. There's always something fun about it. Every time you're in the space, you bring that fun to it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about changing my title to the Joy Alchemist.
Okay. Is that a potential, or is that just
it may be because
some distant future?
Yeah. Essentially, I feel that a joy can be another name for God. So to be in joy is to be inside of God, to enjoy, to be in it. So when I think about joy, I think about the easiness of spirit moving through unbounded, vibrating in truth, vibrating in voltage of being fully alive. And so, my goal is to be in joy, in play, in fun as much as possible. And that's not to deny that life comes with challenges. Growth comes with resistance, right? I'd say that growth comes with both resistance and movement. And so oftentimes that, if I look at that resistance through the realm of my rational, cognitive 3D reality, it goes bad. I easily can name it bad. And if I identify more with the fact that it's a game, that I'm choosing to grow,
Right.
that I'm choosing to play this game of evolution, then I can just learn to have that resistance as tension that is moving through my body, that is required for it's required for me to actually move.
So there are two major camps that I recognize, people who are all about healing and people who are all about fun. And life is not about just healing. Life is all about enjoyment. And on that spectrum, would you say you're right on the edge of the other one, or?
I would say joy and fun is healing. And as you know, I do so many events where I'm exploring consciousness and doing integration work in community. And this is the kind of work that I do one-on-one with people in a playful way.
Yeah.
Because the work can be very deep. The work that I'm called to do can be very deep and very profound. But deep isn't like the opposite of fun. It can also be like I'm going there because I am in the choice. I am willing. I can. Right. I get to.
Yeah.
So I think that being lighthearted about the fact that we get to choose.
Yes.
So when I'm in choice, I'm having fun.
Yes.
When I am not in choice, when I feel disempowered, it feels painful.
Right. Would you say life is difficult, life is hard, or something in between? For you, at least. Yeah.
Depends on how I'm looking at it in that moment. For me,
does it always change for you? Like, I tend to see my life being easy. I choose to have an easy life, even though, yes, there are challenges. What is it for you?
It's a moment-to-moment choice to me. I think that my life is incredibly fun. It's so fun that I actually face the challenge of feeling of my personality wanting to come off because it feels like, am I having too much fun? And so it's great. It gives me great material to work with, right? Because our stuff is our stuff. It continues to show up, and we just find better ways of opening into it, of changing our perspective or language around what intensity is.
What was the last time you realized that you were having too much fun?
It's like I'm in a moment of my life, and that I just went through a separation, and it was so challenging, like all fours on the floor, wailing, crying, feeling my heart and my emotions coming out of it, and at the same time I could feel the celebration of my soul, like so proud that I was daring to go to the depth of it all. And so I feel that I have merit in this point of my life where I have organized what was out of alignment, because essentially I guide people towards alignment, and it's the work that I'm committed to continue to do in my life. So there's the merit. It really feels like my pain has taught me so much about fun and pleasure. My willingness to go to the extremes allows me to open up more and more, because the more that I can hold the intensity of each moment, the more in pain, the more that I can hold the intensity of each moment in pleasure. I really feel that anything that we can allow ourselves to feel like fully can be enjoyable, even heartache and even pain. And so I think that even though I was heartbroken and moving through that, I was still having fun of knowing that I was choosing to do the work when it was coming up, so I didn't have to deal with it for years to come.
Yeah.
And through it, I was also dancing and singing and doing all the practices that I know bring me to my vitality very consciously. What were the things that bring me joy? And really, like, my practices that help me identify that has been like, I don't know how people do it without it.
Yeah. Would you say it's equal for you being joyful or enjoying life and being present? The more present you are, the more you are enjoying it, or
100%. But we're speaking about how I understand joy, right? And we give it another name for God. Like, if I am not fully present, which is another name for God, right? Presence, right here. right? Like I say now, where is God now? Can you feel it? And so the more that I'm in God, right, or in presence or in joy, the more that my whole vital force, right, which is like how I like to feel my soul. Like I could feel my soul as full vitality of being. And if I feel my soul as full vitality of being, that means that all my energies are right here in this now moment. Even if that in that now moment, the truth of that moment is chaos or heartache or physical pain or tiredness. But if I can hold it, right? Our human mind wants to do everything to not hold the intensity of joy, God, presence,
For sure, because I feel like there is probably a subset of people, maybe a majority, that would define joy as only a subset of what you said, as like only the pleasant, whatever, pleasurable moments, and then the rest, even though you might be fully aware that they're happening, they might not be interpreted as joyful or pleasant. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's almost like again looking at words without the dualistic conceptual good or bad. And we really think about joy. Joy is not being ecstatic happiness, right? Joy is I'm able to sustain a calm, compassionate kindness and engagement with all that is happening right here, right now. And that's how I experience it, right? It's just like alertness, like wow. It's like wow.
Yeah.
And so in that, like that can look like a whole lot of many things, right? But if I can hold that curiosity, that realness of presence, right? Then I can be in joy even if it hurts in that moment.
So I think the listener, the watcher, already has some good idea of the flavor of the personality that you are. I think it would be also useful for you to share the journey, how you, and we'll talk more about what you do now and the how you work with people, how you bring the positive change in the world through your work. I'd like to now start with sharing a little bit about your background of some instrumental experiences in life that really define your character and personality. What maybe some challenges, some uniqueness about your trajectory. One example for me is, I'm an immigrant coming from Belarus. It is, yes, there are a lot of immigrants, but I think it gives you some uniqueness to it. So what is it for you that you think really defining like your uniqueness?
I think that what defines my uniqueness is that at a very young age, I had many parents. My mother and my father separated when I was 4. She moved to the States, and I went on to live with her sisters in another city. And every year, I was not an easy kid. I was sad, like in my aunt's eyes, my mom was doing this great sacrifice, and she was doing this work of, going as a first generation immigrant to the States. And she couldn't understand why I couldn't appreciate that. But I'm like, I'm a kid. It was hard for me. I had a lot of emotions, and my aunt was taking care of even more kids in the family, and I was acting out. And so next year I went to live with another aunt, and then the year after with another aunt, and the year after with another aunt. Wow. So I say that I have many mamas. I have many moms. And I learned to many things, actually, living with all of them. One being that I learned to be a chameleon and really mold myself to different people. Through that process, what was happening is that my heart was being shattered again and again and again. And what was arising for me was this understanding that I was not good enough for anyone, that I was not lovable enough for people to fight for me, for people to hold me, to see me, to hear me, that I was a bother, really. And I met up with my mother when I was around 9. I was 9 years old. and I couldn't connect with her. And the relationship she had with my brother, who this whole time was living with my grandparents, so we didn't have that much of a connection, was like they spoke the same language. And somehow I felt like they forgot to teach me this language. They're like the same human. And I just felt very disconnected, you know. And it was this beautiful development of understanding that, well, here I am. I don't connect with anybody. And so throughout the years, my search was inwards, right? So just going inwards, going more and more into how I'm feeling, and starting to be very introspective, especially coming to America after being a communicator, a verbal, artistic kid, to not knowing a language, not being able to communicate, when communication through art or through anything was so important to me.
Right.
So that introspection started quite early. And
Like what age would you say?
I would say since I got here, because I had me to hang out with. Like in Colombia, you just kind of like let the kids go out, and here it was like and hot, and so there are parks and things, and I would go on these journeys by myself. Even then, actually, so I would go on hikes. When in Colombia, I would go on little hikes and put fruits in my pockets and go for the day and like get lost on purpose. So even then, actually,
And when you moved to the States, how old were you?
9.
9, yeah.
I was 9. And so, yeah, that whole inner feeling like a loner was very useful for, and it was probably the most painful thing, being alone for me. Being alone, feeling like an outsider from a really long age. And the gift of that is that it taught me to really kind of seek solitude. Very early on, I learned that was a very important part of me, that I could really hear me in solitude. And so from not feeling worthy enough, good enough, I went on to being a teenager that perhaps didn't value myself enough, didn't hear my intuition, I didn't know how to trust myself good enough. I didn't have good models. I didn't have good male models.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I didn't grow up with a good father figure. So just trusting the wrong people, making wrong decisions that went on to haunt me really heavily, especially when I got kicked out of my house when I was 17, because I was doing the parties and doing all the, the bad girl stuff. And so I left home pretty early. I was a runaway kid at 17 in New York, and fell in love. And it was in falling in love that everything started coming up. I mean, the shame, the not being good enough, like on full force. And I was in that relationship, which was a gorgeous relationship, until I was around 24. And then the work started, because I had been trying to mold myself to people, to gain love, to win love, until the end of that relationship.
Yeah.
And at the end of that relationship, I walked out not knowing who I was, and not knowing what I liked, not knowing how to heal my shame, my quiet shame, from a person that I was an actor now, right? So I was both a yogi and an actor, and I was hiding behind this gorgeous smile that I got so much validation for, and truly inside it was something. It was killing me inside. The shame that I felt for myself, the not feeling good enough, the feeling ugly at a soul level, at the core, was so painful. And I'm so grateful for it, because it got me on my journey. And also, like, as an actor, exploring different characters that had similar experiences as some of the experiences that I had as a teenager, made me realize that there was some healing to do. And so as a yogi, I was exploring soul and what was there without like this, who am I beyond these ideas and this personality. And as an actor, I was exploring behavior, and that kind of led to the seeds for what I do today.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. From my understanding, your acting involvement came from your experience with being Himalayan
A chameleon.
chameleon, to like be different types of characters, and that was very natural and easy for you. And then what about yoga and spiritual practices? What was the driver there? Like the journey within, was that the one?
100%.
No.
I started practicing yoga and I could feel how so much of memory that I didn't know was stored in my physical form. And that I did a physical practice that led to a lot of mental silence if I stood still afterwards. So that these asanas, these psychological gestures that I was doing with my body, essentially what they were teaching me about spaces that were contracted in my form. And as I was starting to open them and I would sit in silence, because I had already a desire to be in solitude and to be in silence, I was experiencing life at a different level. I was experiencing mind breaks. I was experiencing probably why I still meditate so consistently, because I was having semi or actual psychedelic experiences just from starting a meditation practice, so on, like sober.
Right.
And I think a lot of it had to do also with the fact that I was mixing how I was teaching myself to meditate with the breath work and actually a voice work that I was doing as an actor. My voice mentor, I went to him for accent reduction at the time, because so much of my wounds were continuing to be validated as an actor, right? So not good enough. So I went to this teacher for accent reduction, and he was actually the first person that saw me for the work that I did today. We had these deep conversations about life, and he was interested in teaching me how to breathe. And so I was doing this pranayama work as a yogi. I was doing voice work. I was doing movement, and I was sitting still and having like all this, visuals and all these experiences of space in between the space, like I never got again. It was just in the beginning of my practice. It was so wow. The inner realms were amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. So I got addicted in a good way.
Yeah. The addictive kind of patterns, have you had them throughout life that you've been either managing or bringing more awareness to? Like, is that something that you've experienced throughout life?
Like addiction patterns? Addiction patterns have not been a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I can say that because I have tried so many things, and I'm a good trier of things. I don't, and also I'm sure that I might have addictions when it comes to pattern behaviors. I feel we all have addictions. To me, they've never been through substances or through holding on to people. And I think some of the right things that I see often with clients, and I think some of that is because I grew up learning to detach quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's also my conditioning, which can also be a distortion, right? Sometimes when I'm feeling too close to people and my ways, I'm a runner, that's some of my stuff that I get to work on, which is like, oh, it got a little intense, right? There's a lot of feeling here. And so instead of attaching, my mechanism, if I'm unconscious, is just like, self-sabotage. Let's go. I have something more important to do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So.
And so from what I'm hearing, yoga was the entry point into your spiritual practice, spiritual growth, right? Would you say that?
Yes. And I would also say back to when I was a child and having those hikes alone and exploring nature alone. I think that was my first yoga. I think that was my first way of having union, of just being in pure exploration, adventure mode without like having those mind breaks so early on.
Right.
It was kind of the same feeling I was experiencing from having established practices, looking inward.
You probably put the name on the spiritual journey when you started doing yoga. Before that wasn't called spiritual journey. Only now you interpret it as one. but maybe consciously you realize like, oh, I'm on my spiritual journey probably when you started getting into yoga.
Yeah, for sure.
And
and I would also say, if I may, that now looking back and looking at like the most mystical experiences that I've had actually were on stage. And that's really interesting.
Share more. Like what? Oh.
When you're in stage, when you work in theater and you play these characters, you allow new energies to move through you.
Yeah.
And so you practice, you do script analysis, you do as if, you study the reasons why, the background of this human who you start to understand as a being. And all of a sudden, from consistent exploration, you start to, the weirdest thing happens, you start to feel the heart, the breath, the body, this new energy taking over, and you are working in a group of people, and sometimes there are these sacred little moments where you as who you are as a personality totally leaves, and there's a whole new energy that moves through you. And so it's channeling. It really is a way of channeling. And so that experience, right, developing characters and going through the work of wanting to develop things that were on a page was kind of what led me to want to develop my own character, right? So I take people now in the work that I do and to do sub-personality work, which is understanding, you can call it like shadow work, right? And so it's just about integrating the parts of your psyche that we've disowned. And bringing them back into center so you can cooperate and develop them and have them work for you and not against you. Because I was an actor, I was doing this kind of work without having the language for it either. And just like having my practice as a yogi, and I kept thinking, well, if I do this character work on myself, right? And if I do this yogic work on the character, right? It's like, so I was just infusing these two realms. And I think they are very much what I do now.
And what's the difference between channeling a character and channeling your higher self, would you say?
I don't know if I think that opening ourselves to the idea of there is a part of us that is making us come alive innately. And when I do that, there's no one in the room that needs to know but me. When I'm channeling a character, or, which is something so sensitive that you can never be promised that you can do or not do. It's just, it might happen sometimes. When you're channeling a character, there are people in the room that you're doing it as an experience, as a way to share that experience. So there's always someone watching.
Okay.
When you're channeling your higher self, you're doing it to come alive. Right. So the way that I invite people to consider integrating and developing their personality is to listening to what makes them come alive. Really, what makes you as the individual, the uniqueness in you, what makes you come alive? Feel the voltage, feel the intensity of full vitality of being moving through you, or joy.
Yeah. And so how do people recognize that that's what it is? Like someone who has no awareness.
That is the importance of being fully embodied. And so this is the work of allowing ourselves to be possessed by our soul, to be incarnate fully as souls in one body, requires us to have a good relationship with the body. It is the first necessary step. So it's important that we create practices that, one, teach us to be sensorial beings, to stop denying sensation and feelings and avoidance or distractions. Right? We do that as humans. And the other important thing is to know that sometimes we do that because we want to get to somewhere. We want to get to something. We want to get to, right? We're outcome oriented.
Right.
When actually exploring presence requires space, right? It requires us to craft out space to understand that conscious evolution requires conscious involution.
Yeah.
And that comes with a willingness to feel like all that is right now, the truth of the moment, without bypassing it as like positive vibes only.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like like learning about presence is the practice of slowing down as much as you can, I guess. It's not about movement, it's about being stationary and looking around.
Yeah, I would say that it's also about movement.
Okay.
I would say that presence moves, right?
Okay,
Because
yeah.
presence is, everything is presence, right? It's just like, how do I learn to recognize that actually the presence that is moving through you, right? And if you could just practice with me right now, just have a moment of just feeling absolutely everything that you can tap into moving through your body right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
And at the same time, we have this envelope of energy, right, holding us in space. And so all of that is presence. All of that is aliveness. And when I allow my distractions, my conditionings, my worries, right, my thinking forward, my anxiousness to take me out of that,
yeah.
then I'm not incarnate. Then I'm not embodied. Then I'm not really allowing for a channeling to happen or for a listening to happen because my mind is out there and not in now.
Understand. So basically what I'm hearing is practice of presence starts from maybe slowing down and maybe stopping and feeling the feelings here in your little bubble. And then a more advanced version of it is once you have the presence of your bubble, you're really sensing all of the parts of it, then you can do the movement. And then
Bifocal vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having an awareness of what's happening inside of me and what's happening outside. So the development of presence, we can look at it as first we start to figure out ways that we can hold this center of this now moment in little practices and little spurts of time.
Yeah.
And with practice, what we do is that center, we can hold our center for longer and longer periods of time. And we know, we can see with the practice that through challenges or life of changes, transitions, it's harder to hold on to that center. And when we succeed, we can literally use our power of choice to live free from how perhaps we would have reacted to the situation if we were bounded to our conditioning, which is always about thinking about the past and not being fully here.
Right. I'd like for you to share more about so as you continue evolving on your spiritual journey, importance of working with different tools like plant medicines, and maybe share any other tools that were instrumental for your evolution.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, plant medicines have been really important to me. And I went into plant medicines already being a yogi, already being somebody that was introspective and had practices. They are very, very important tools that we have as humans that should be approached with a lot of respect and with a lot of reverence. And I stand for them. You know, so much of the work that I do now has been through the clarification of my of guidance that I have gotten from myself, from listening to the understanding of what me as a soul was, what I am here to do, to use Sandra as the vehicle to do that.
Right.
And so to understand that, yes, I have a body and I have this personality with the name that's Sandra and her stories, and I'm so much more than that. And I'm so much more than that. Yeah. And that's so much more. Some of the ways that some of us have experienced it briefly has been through having moments of channeling, presence, of really feeling fully alive in the space in between the space without plant medicines. And when we are working with the plants, is a recognition of the way that I've experienced it, is a recognition that our identity goes beyond our name, that we are a cell in a body.
Yeah.
And that body is an organism called Earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we are a particle of consciousness. And it moves like water. And it wants to move through you. And when you're in joy, you can open. When you're in joy, you're not contracted. And so much of my work with plant medicine has been to really understand it as it's just here as a guide. It's almost like, and I work often with ayahuasca, and I often, right? I say often, but I mean I have worked with it for going on 9 years now, and I will probably do it until she tells me it's no longer time. And it's I say I'm gonna go, and take my list and come home and integrate and do the homework.
Yeah.
And then everything that I continue to do in my life has been direct guidance from what I know to be the voice of the earth. It really feels like that. Like there's a mother that is guiding us to do what, if we are aligned and we can hear it and we see our potential, and it's showing us the bigger vision. And it's also showing us when we're not in alignment, and it also is showing us like when we're bullshitting ourselves. So it's, I think that it can be very intense experience for many people that perhaps are not on a path, and it can be also very transformational if they take it seriously and if they're willing to do both the preparation and the integration. The ceremony really starts, all ceremonies with all plant medicines that I work with really start right after. How do we integrate it? I have experience, not to speak bad about the plant, but I have experience working with people, how sometimes people feel disconnected, like even more disconnected, because now they had this grand vision for their lives and they didn't have a way to ground that vision. And so now it's like, there's that me, and then there's this me, and now there's this gap.
Right.
And there's and the gap is a big longing and not knowing how to put it down into actable, doable practices, rituals, ways that verify, validate what we're choosing to be.
Right.
So integration is super important when it comes to plant medicines, and I really love them. I really love them.
Yeah. Even we got to sit once to get was it twice together?
Yeah.
That was beautiful too. What would you say if there's such a thing as Sandra before working with plant medicine and Sandra? I mean, yes, it's an evolution. It's not like you've ended the chapter. But what's the biggest, like, what have you acquired? What's the biggest delta between you before and maybe now?
I think it's remembering myself from other lifetimes.
Okay.
So remembering myself as an old grandma, it continues to play in my journeys, that I get to embody eldership as a choice, because I recognize being in the medicine space as something that I have done so many times. And in those places, I often feel like I know that realm a little bit more. Like I'm more comfortable there. Like I really know myself there. Myself with a capital S. I really know my soul when I'm there. And so having that validation for the work that I am here to do has been really important. Like, I've been doing this work. I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
And I've actually had experiences where I've seen myself through all these different humans, all these different teachers, and just being back doing the same work. So I feel that something that I've gained so much from the work has been, of course, doing like my own healing and my own integration, and being smart enough to have a lot of discrimination and make sure that I'm with the right people, and in the right environments. When approaching this medicine. So it's been the healing work, but also the recognition of my path, and standing, right? And having the courage to stand in ceremony. And like, it builds courage. Ceremonial work is, people are just like, oh, for me, it's now a party. but it isn't. It wasn't always, know? to me, it's often like I was grieving in the jungle. Like, you don't even know. Well, my heart was broken. I was going through this separation just a few months ago, in April, from 3-4 months ago. And I was going through this separation, and my heart was just like, God, it was raw. Felt like it was bleeding. And I was dancing through it all with my tears, and willing myself to dance through it and willing myself to sink through it. So it's a courage. Sitting with the medicine teaches you courage, teaches you to go inwards and to understand that the darkness isn't bad, I think, for me. And that's something that I stand for, right? Like, one of the things that I stand for is to invite people to consider that your darkness is not bad. Yeah. Your darkness is necessary. Your darkness, when you close your eyes, is everything bad in there? It's not. When you open your eyes, is everything like rainbows? It's right. So actually, the medicine has shown me the importance of honoring the darkness, of honoring that when we go inwards, when I'm able to look deep and deeper within myself, with the purpose, with the intention to evolve, it's almost like a luminous darkness that I go inwards to get very clear on what are my longings, what are my callings, what are my involutions, right? The first necessary step for evolution, that I want to make sure that I'm very connected with the part of me that is pulling, calling in, calling forth, and listening to that, because that is a way that I can really use my energy, my will, my intention to express truly and authentically.
Yeah. Would you recommend working with plant medicine, or is it for the masses, would you say? Is plant medicine for everyone? Or who is it for if it's not?
I'm like, well, these people can do this.
Yeah.
And if you do it right. So I would say that it's not for everybody. It's 100% not for everybody. It's an exploration for the ones willing to let go and to surrender. It is not something that will be insightful or perhaps very optimally explored if we're going into this with doubt or resistance or contraction or lack of respect. I think that they perhaps can really serve someone who is earnestly looking to expand their consciousness and willing to do the work before and after engaging with a spirit. I really feel like these plants have spirits, and in that there's guidance and there's homework. And so it's for the people that are really trying to live for the good of all. I think that it can really serve humanity in a great way, and we're starting to think about crafting a more beautiful world. I think that these plants are really here to serve us, and also, like, that there's a lot of people there that are serving these medicines that perhaps are not doing it with and not approaching them with the reverence that they need to be approached. And perhaps maybe there's some good into that, because at least they're reaching more people. And at the same time, to really consider that you're opening a portal to a different dimension. You're opening a portal that is taking you towards the depth of healing. And so if this is something that speaks to you, that look for people you trust and look for people that have had experiences with this work, and to surrender fully. Yeah. To surrender fully.
Yeah, I definitely recognize the importance of the space holders or those who carry the medicine, because as you mentioned, you do open the portals, and you can invite any kind of spirit, both light and dark. And if dark spirits enter the space, you might be in trouble for a while. Like you might have a very challenging time, not only during the ceremony, but I feel like you could, to the point of like possession, like you can be somehow possessed or something like that. I don't know if that's how you see it.
That is not how I see it.
Okay, tell me now.
I actually believe that I really stand for this, that I whenever I create my space and I go into the medicine space, I believe that we are here as souls in a world that it is free will. So if I go with the idea that other things might might possess me, there's a possibility for that. So I make clear intentions, like nothing comes into my space unless I call it. Nothing comes into me, and that's my choice.
Right.
With everything in life, really. And I think that ceremonial spaces and sexuality mirror life so perfectly, right? Two ceremonial ways of looking of like paralleling like what life really is. If you just put them into there is a boundary that is created energetically or not that I choose to embark on. And if I go with fear, right? Like I think the first ceremony I had this really ugly monsters just come up looking super scary. And I don't know why. And I don't, maybe it was a book that I was reading, but I just stood in front of them and said, "You don't scare me. You don't scare." It was the first time I ever sat with medicine after like having a whole night of not feeling anything. I was like on my fourth cup. I wasn't feeling anything until this energy started to come in. And I was like, I you don't scare me. And I just stood there watching them, and they just transform into different things. And if you go into any situation, really walking down the street in a city you've never been on, and your expectation is everything, and you're walking with fear,
right?
And you're walking in like
right.
It's almost like you're calling it forth, right? I say that I speak 4 languages, and one of them is energy, right? So it's like the energy of contraction is the energy of repulsion, the energy of fear, the energy of not allowing spirit to come in, presence to come in, openness, joy, so it's the same thing when we're exploring the medicines or intimacy in any way. If I'm contracting, I'm not allowing, I'm not welcoming, I'm not really present, I'm running away from the experience. And fear does that.
So from kind of the experience of interacting with people who haven't done the medicine before, they've heard about it and they're potentially considering, they have a certain amount of fear around it, I'm sure. How do one know if they're ready? It's basically, is it just the internal, like, I am ready, now I go? Or there's some kind of indicators that your fear, you can overcome your fear? Like, how do people make a decision? Like, how can we help people make a decision if they're ready or not, or we can't really do that? The only ones to know.
I was gonna say before you said that, like, first, sovereignty. Like, you listen to yourself, right? And really stand with whoever, that there's no expert in the room but you. And a good way to listen to that is, what's your body saying? Is your body contracting? Is your body being pulled? Is it being propelled? Right? Like, get sensorially present with your experience as you explore these thoughts. Your body can tell you. Your intuition communicates through your senses. It communicates through your thinking sometimes, but mostly communicates through your feeling, right? It's a nut, it's a hunch, it's a thing. Like it's sometimes it's a visual or something you hear. So pay attention. And essentially your intuition is usually guiding you to experiences of openness, even if it's something scary. They're moving you to experiences of openness. If you feel like a triggering feel like that, or like it's probably like a subpersonality or a shadow that's trying to keep you small, right? So I feel that the answer is within you. If you want to know that if you're ready for it, start to create practices that help you explore presence, because you are going to require it so much. Like, you will require, and it's just that 7 hours of sitting in a meditative state through this work, or laying if your body can't take sitting down. And with other medicines, it's the same thing. They might be shorter. And sometimes if they're shorter, they're stronger right away. So it requires an ability to stop the holding and to give in. So if you are looking for something that allows you or invites you to crack open more fully, you start doing it for yourself now, whether that is falling in love or whether that is working with plants or whether that is moving towards your purpose. You start by exploring presence within you in the now.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Could you share with me some projects that you're currently working on, like the Wild Woman Alchemy and maybe your one-on-one coaching, the type of work that you're doing there? What are you excited about doing that work, and like what type of maybe change you help people go through by interacting in those ways?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I'm drawn to invite people to develop is personality. To develop their personality, to integrate it, to get very clear in what are all the things that are stealing their presence so that they can bring their energies back. So we move through healing, but always because of our vision. I think that the thing that I do differently, that people that work like I do different, is that I'm a yogi, I'm potential oriented. I'm always looking at where I'm going. And through that, I can look back and say, okay, what's in the way of that? So developing our personality so that our soul can express through it. That's the work that I do. And that includes getting very familiar with the vehicle of consciousness that is your body, your antenna to listen.
Right.
And so embodiment work through the conscious creator experience is one of the main things we explore, not just through mobility and moving, but also through living it. What are the things that I'm calling to do? How can I be it? We're never getting what we want. We're getting what we are. So it's the invitation to invite people to be that, right? To be it now. And we bring that through to the conscious events that I do here in Miami, which is called Wild Woman Alchemy. At some point I was doing an event called Tantric Theater, which are ways to explore presence, to explore consciousness in a fun way. One of the ways that we do that at the Wild Woman Alchemy is that we find ways to tune out the physical noise and all the things that are getting in the way so that we can rewild, that we can come back to the wisdom of our body, the wisdom of the earth, to remember ourselves as parts of it. It's the work that I do through everything that I'm putting out. Through every offering, it's the same kind of work. One is mostly I'm seeing people one-on-one. I see some mostly on Zoom. So community is very big for me. I feel like, as you heard my story a little bit, our wounding start with people, and I truly believe that they heal in community and being seen and still loved and heard when we are expressing our not so pretty, socially acceptable ways of being, because we can play, because play allows us that freedom and still feel like we belong and we're not being exiled or left alone. And so I feel that most of the work that I'm here to do is to help people incarnate more fully as the souls that they are, so that they can live out their soul's purpose, because that's why we came here to do. It's so very different than just being up there in the cosmos and transcending. I feel that in the more beautiful world that I see is that we are living as souls on earth, fully embodied, fully delighted in having sensorial experiences and being in the tantra of life, and being able to hold the intensity that this experience of being in this crazy, incredibly amazing, colorful world is giving me. Being here.
Yeah, this is actually a good transition to the vision that you have for humanity, the future. The name of the podcast is Human Future, and so I'd like for you to share visions that are pulling you, giving you energy to move forward. Maybe talking about relationship with your different elements or aspects of seeing that future, and then try to paint it from the perspective of maybe relationship to self, relationship to community. You just touched on a little bit about how you see humans being this manifested embodiments of soul in it, like just a soul, pure manifestation of a soul. And so the relationship with self, community, society, I'd love to maybe anything that you feel called to share, but I also like to touch on relationship maybe with technology, relationship with nature, relationship with the universe, anything that you see out there and you notice particular elements that you resonate with. Yeah.
So when I think about a more beautiful world, I'm very grateful to say that in my small hubs of community, we kind of are living already in a more beautiful world. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to know that I can gather with people and be seen as a soul, to see other people as the souls that they are, to celebrate their growth, to give each other attention because we are thriving and not just when we are hurting, to be able to stand so strongly in what we do with our uniqueness. And I think about how the world would change if even 51% of the people were doing what made them come alive. 51, like if just tip the scale a little bit, because we also need the contrast. We came here for a little bit, It wouldn't be very cinematic experience if we didn't have some sort of contrast. I feel like there's always, right? I'm grateful for the people that are unconscious because I know myself because of them. So it's not to try to fix everybody to be one dimension, everybody think the same, but where we can see each other as the souls that we are in whatever level of consciousness that we are, because we are so alive in vital presence, doing what we're here to do that is uniquely us. It is both our personality, our story, all the things that we've learned throughout the way, all the wisdom that we've acquired. And at the same time, it's also what is moving through us, the openness to the present moment, the recognition that I am a soul in this one body, and also I serve this greater planet. So my relationships with the earth, the air, the elements, the fire, the birds, there is a sacred union that sometimes we hear this idea of sacred union with a partner, and that's great, but I'm in sacred union with every single relationship that I'm in, because I choose to be in sacred divine union with myself. And if we can expand that to be something that more of us can engage in, perhaps just a little bit more than half, just a little bit more than half, I feel that it will be naturally like, and it's really why I do what I do, because the way that I'm called to serve Earth, Gaia, is that if we invite people to expand their individual consciousness, you don't have to teach them how to love the earth. It is a natural outcome that happens when you get so sensitive with your love, with compassion, with understanding that everything that you eat is your body, that your body and everything that you think and that you engage in is the way that you think. And so you fall in love with this experience of being fully alive, and you create this compassion for your neighbor, for the birds, for the what kind of soap you're using. And is this creating plastic? So in this more beautiful world, we're just being, and people sometimes think that when you're going into a conscious life, you're going to have less pain. And I would say the truth is no. You might feel it more. And you will also feel joy more, and you would also feel connection more, and you would also feel coming alive more. You would feel more. You would have the experience. We, as a more beautiful culture, in my vision, is that we would feel living, being alive in this short passing moment of our lives, this one breath that we get to take, to be fully here. It's so exciting to think that it is beautiful when you can do it by yourself, but when we do it and we gather and we're doing it together, the ripples of creativity, of healing, of strength that is created by coming together in I see you-ness, right? I see you. And like I see you is the most beautiful way to love someone, to really see them, to see through their conditioning and their little me moments, but to see them because we have the ability to see ourselves. And so in a more beautiful world, people are more connected to the fact that, yes, they have a personality that has conditioning, and at the same time that we can identify more and more with the souls that we are. So that when we're engaging in anything, right, whether it's technology, whether it is my exploration of any sort of trip into nature, into whatever it is that I am doing it with the awareness of, is this for the best of all? Because I no longer know myself as an island. I know myself as all, as a part of this greater body's consciousness and earth. So is this the best for myself, right? Is this in the best of all? So that we as a collective, as a community, can develop in that expansive love for who we are in our greater essence, to feel connected. When we can feel that we are not alone, we stop the battle with everyone, with the world. We want to give life, because as part of consciousness and as part of earth is a giving life. It's what consciousness does. It just procreates and procreates. And I really feel that we're here to do two things. We're here to create and procreate, because that's what we are. Earth does that. Consciousness does that. And so by identifying more and more with who we truly are, I feel like we can mold this place into a both structured and beautifully created place for us to thrive in abundance, in more and more creativity. I see us working a lot less and playing a lot more, because the work that makes us come alive is so engaging to us. You know, I have conversations with people and I hear myself singing and dancing and doing handstands, and I feel very, very lucky that I found that for myself. And so if each of us can recognize our uniqueness and express that in the world, just in your own immediate circle, the healing that would have for everyone around you, because you are now an electric being. So imagine more and more of us doing that. So it's just invitation. If you think about it, right? It's like David Bohm spoke about this in the Gaia theory. It's like if one cell of an organism starts to get healthy, right? All the cells around it start to electrify with energy. Just the same thing if there's a cancerous cell in one body, all the cells around it start to die. So I see a more beautiful world where we get to model, like consciously choose to model the best of humanity for each other, for myself, but for each other. That I'm going to show, that I'm going to, it's not about like being better than anyone. It's about saying like, I'm standing for life. I'm giving of life. I'm standing for life-giving values. And the natural expression of that is growth. That's what life does when you serve it.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. And where then the natural question comes out of that, someone who've received this type of vision, they've received your message and they don't know where to start. What would you say is the most impactful, maybe easier first step for people to take, and maybe a few other steps that potentially they could take that you see from your perspective, with your experience?
Environment.
Okay.
Environment. Where are you putting yourself? Pay attention to what are the people, the images, the activities, the foods. Anything that you are around is becoming a part of you. It's that simple. Pay attention to your environment. How is your room right now? What does it say? Start organizing, start getting rid of whatever you don't need, clear your space. And that also means like, what is your inner environment? What is the food that you're putting into your system? What kind of body do you want to live in? And I'm not saying like have the most athletic or aim for perfection when it comes to a body, but can you invite every day more and more vitality? Can you eat for energy? Can you eat for aliveness? Right? So it's not like, is this diet good for me, or explore. Is it good for you? Does it give you energy? Does it not give you energy? And then the same thing with movement. Like my path has been yoga, and I stand for it. I still teach, not so much now. I'm just doing like teacher training here and there. But I stand so much for it because it is helping us organize our geometry and move from the center. And if we learn to do that more and more, to organize our environment consciously, that physical environment, that mental environment, that social environment, the things that we're choosing to distract ourselves with. Look at your environment, and you think about your life as a terrain, a terrarium for a plant, right? You think if you are a plant, are you giving yourself enough sun? Are you giving yourself enough rest? Are you giving yourself you're just growing a plant, right? In essence, I like to think of myself as a gardener. I'm just a gardener. And that's what you are too. So learn to take care of where you put yourself, of what is holding you. Your intimate relationships, even if that's with your family, sometimes they might not be the most beneficial for your growth, for the what you're growing yourself.
Beautiful. What an amazing answer. I would give you an A+ for the answer. That was a great answer. I think this is a great place to wrap up our conversation. I'd love to also open the floor if you have any other messages that you potentially had in mind to communicate on camera in this way. This is a good time to do so. Let me know.
Yeah, well, maybe I can share with you a little bit of something that I've been exploring this week, and let's see what comes out, because it's been like two main things.
Please.
The first has been trust. And how I was speaking to a client and to a mentor today about trust, and how the truth is that I don't trust Sandra. I don't trust myself, right? That as I take more leaps for myself, right? I've been on this path for a long time, and it's just like, why can't I just have full trust for myself? Why do I trap myself? And this is right. And I've come to the realization that the truth is that my personality is wounded. My personality still has many triggers and things that want to keep it contracted. And I can work with all of that if I identify it with my soul. So that when I say I self-trust, I'm not really thinking about trusting Sandra, little Sandra, but I'm thinking about I trust my soul and standing for that. And that's a really good invitation, that when we can start to identify ourselves with our soul, then self-love is not so much for me, right? And it's like for my soul, self-love, capital S self-love, self-trust, self-devotion. And so doing this recognition of identity in our language, right? That when I say self, who am I really, right? Like self-compassion, like who is that really? Yes, it's for my personality and it's for all the parts that are there for me, but also that trusting our souls, that trusting that our souls see the greater picture. And sometimes when we hear those callings which are unique to us, we have a responsibility to answer. We have a unique responsibility to answer. And that perhaps with our limited perspective and perceptions of what has been or what could be, it becomes very scary. But we can trust your soul, that if you have a yearning, a calling that is unique to you, to lean in instead of avoid. Lean in. At some point, it becomes more doable to go for what you're here to do than to resist it. Resistance is repulsion of vitality coming in. So that's something that I've been exploring, and yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, beautiful.